Hi everybody, Chris Titley here and welcome to Scoreboard. Scoreboard is based on one simple premise, and that is premium access for curious minds. We have conversations with athletes, coaches, owners, CEOs, stakeholders, broadcasters, and people who think, lead and make things happen. No buzzwords, no jargon, just clear thinking, lived experience, and lessons that you can use to be a better you. We bring the access, they bring the experience, and you bring the curiosity. Together, we build the only scoreboard that matters, your own. Scoreboard, premium access for curious minds.
This episode is powered by Swyftx, Australia's top-rated crypto exchange and proudly homegrown. Now let's get to today's episode.
Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast, I'm joined by Mitch McCarron. Mitch, thanks so much for being part of this series.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Mitch, we're sitting here on the 4th of August 2025. 2025 has been a big year for you. I'm curious to know how your Monday's been and how would you describe your year so far?
Yeah, my Monday's been good. It's been, I don't know the right word, if I have a perfect word for it. It's been hectic. It's been unpredictable. Very, very lucky to have been a professional athlete and kind of stay in that space for a decade. But that was like an unpredictability where it was like, okay, you kind of just had to go with the flow. And now it's like an unpredictability in terms of that's a drastic shift to a different phase of life, and not one that I was maybe expecting to make, but at the same time felt like the right thing to do. So yeah, there's been a lot of that this year.
In the back of your mind, maybe a couple of seasons ago or whatnot, was there ever a plan B that was sort of coming to fruition, or has it sort of come a little bit suddenly now?
I think I was always in the back of my mind. Like, I think even when I was younger, I said, if it hurts more or if I'm not enjoying it enough, I want to stop. If I can't move the way that I want to move, that won't be fun, and therefore I need to stop. And I think it just got to the point where my body I had ignored a couple injuries, or at least tried to play through a couple injuries and just do some side rehab and not really like pay proper attention to that. And then those caught up with me, and I definitely felt that this year when I did my PCL, because it didn't feel like just my PCL; it felt like everything else, and then my PCL all at once.
The straw that broke the camel's back, as they say.
I think so. So I think it was kind of forced me into. I was already in that space mentally to say, maybe one more year. Maybe 2026 is the year that I say, all right, that's enough. And I move on with the next phase with my family. But it was the right decision to make this year.
I'm going to ask a question now around a bit of background noise. I'm going to ask a question now around your relationship, how you feel about basketball right now.
I actually still love basketball. I still play with the Eltham Wild. Well, our season just ended actually, but play with the Eltham Wildcats in the NBL 1 and had a ton of fun with the guys. And there's no sour feelings, and I think that was part of the reason why it felt right to step away from full-time basketball, is because I don't ever want to hate the game and resent it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And in regards to the next phase of your life, do you want to describe what you're up to now, post-professional athlete life?
Yeah, so two different roles. One is with the ABPA, so the Australian Basketball Players Association, and I'm helping with player resource. So essentially, I'm GM of player relations and engagement. I'm getting around all the NBL, WNBL teams, and a little bit in the national team space as well, just helping triage them into resources and also offering support on an individual basis as well. I'm really excited about that role. I love obviously staying involved in the league. I thought, maybe I'd have to step away from basketball for a little while and, go get a real job or whatever away from the court. But I'm fortunate enough to stay around the game. And the second role is with the Eltham Wildcats, working there as head of junior pathways. So helping put some pipelines and some pathways that are identifiable for players and coaches and also technical staff eventually, just so kids know where they're trying to go, I guess, and coaches can keep developing.
And what is it about basketball that you're in love with and have enjoyed all your entire life?
There's a lot to it. I think I've always enjoyed the competitive nature to it as a team. As much as I'd say I'm a competitive individual, I think it's, I like being around groups. I like being around others and trying to get after something with a group of guys that you really get along with is obviously the best part of basketball for me. But also just, I guess that I had some really good coaches when I was younger that kind of emphasized, how we want, good people and good humans, and how, doing it for a teammate feels better than just doing something for yourself. And so I think that's part of why I want to continue to coach and give back and be around basketball and help athletes develop, is because I know that feeling when someone's really helped you, and then you can pass that along, and that's how we keep growing as a country.
As a parent now and seeing coaches play with your kids and teaching your kids, what is it about a coach that made in your view, a coach that was someone to aspire to and made the game fun and wanted you to improve as a person?
I had a lot. So all my coaches that I don't mention, you'll have to forgive me. But under 18s, I was playing rep basketball, and Strutty, our coach, kind of, from a technical standpoint, I wouldn't say he was the best technical coach I ever had. But I think he really emphasized, we had a talented group, and he really emphasized, you're not going to play for yourself. I'm not going to, and he didn't pretend to be, I'm not going to be the most technical coach you ever have, but I'm going to make us play as a group. I'm going to make you share the ball. I'm going to make you, give effort, and then we'll have fun as a group, and we'll win a lot of games, and we'll have fun. And I think coming out of that year, that was a big year for me. On the development side, I was, felt like I was taking big strides, but it was just so much fun to go to training and compete and get after it. And then everyone was super close off the court after that as well. So I think that year in particular, I really grew to appreciate, the why, not just why are we doing this shit, just why it's important to play that way and how good it feels.
And you just touched on that, the team thing. And I've delved into this with other athletes. Your role within the team versus your own individual skill and your own ability. How did you manage that through your career?
I think I've always been I've never really considered myself like a star, or, in terms of there was one true skill set that you'd say, yeah, Mitch is the best at that in the age group. And I think I knew that, and I accepted that early on. I wasn't going to be the greatest scorer. I really enjoyed passing. And it's not that I couldn't score. I just really enjoyed passing. I love the feeling of throwing a good kick ahead, or throwing, a no-look pass or something. Even when I was younger, I just really enjoyed that about the game. And for me, I'd probably rather have 10 assists than 30 points. They're just more fun to me as an individual. So from that standpoint, I kind of knew that about myself, which helped. And it might have, in one way, held me back in terms of some coaches when they look at you and they go, oh yeah, but he can't shoot threes at this age and other kids can, and et cetera, et cetera. But then I found, as I went to college, that kind of skill set and understanding of how can I be of value. And my college coach was a huge part of that as well, in just making sure I have value in all facets of the game. If you're not going to be a specialist, then you have to be able to not have any major weaknesses, I suppose, or at least that's the goal. So coming out of college, it was just how can I be the team's best defender? Can I be the team's best passer? Can I be the best organizer? Am I the best teammate? All these little things add up, and just find a way to add value was kind of the biggest goal of mine, I guess.
Mate, you touched on going to college, and not going to college here in Australia, but going to college in the US, the powerhouse of basketball globally, broadly speaking. How was the college experience playing basketball over there?
A ton of fun. It wasn't easy. It definitely wasn't easy. Our coaching staff really made us work. And I'm appreciative for it, because I think that kind of set the bar so high that from then on it was, I don't want to say easy, but in terms of conditioning sessions or whatever, as a pro, you've been through it. You've really gone through it in that college phase. And so also just being away from home, that was a big leap for me. I went to the AIS for 1 year, but it wasn't the same. I'm still in the same country, and I'm still relatively close. And then I go to college, and it's you are a world away. And that was really enjoyable for me to control my own schedule and manage, when I do homework and when I eat and when I do all of that. So I enjoyed that independence, but at the same time, it's a big leap for anyone moving overseas.
Absolutely, mate. And you've been professional here in the NBL now, sort of circa 9 years, 8 years, 9 years, etc. But during that time, I reckon the last decade, I don't know if it's just me or not, but basketball's exploded at a grassroots level in terms of the participation rates, the shortage of courts, the change of the NBL, all this sort of stuff. There's tick, 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 tick. How are you finding Australian basketball now, and some views on that, and where do you see the future? Obviously, also being part of the Players Association as well.
Yeah, it's we need more courts for anyone that's listening and can help with that. We need more courts, which is a great problem to have. Kids want to play basketball. There's more exposure. I guess it's part of to the accessibility that you can watch international basketball, the NBA. Everyone's got phones and tablets, etc., that they can watch that on. But I think it's awesome. I mean, the amount of people that I can strike up a conversation with and know something about basketball, I agree, in 10, 20 years or whatever it's been. Like, it just seems like every second person I know knows something about basketball, which is awesome. And, I get to see it at Eltham. It's a big junior club, and we get to see, just how many kids just love the game and just want more. I just want to play more basketball. So that's really exciting for us. And I think, as a country, we've done pretty well. Obviously, our women have been good for a long time. Our men have been competitive and been trying to reach that medal podium, and then suddenly we get one, and now it's like, can we do one better? Can we keep growing? And I think for our country, we are heading in the right direction, and that's exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's some, I suppose, some characteristics around basketball which parents love, which is reasonably quick. It's indoors, one thing as well. And then there's also participation from each player. Like, in particular instances in other sports, you may not participate in the game because of a whitewash or whatever it might be, or you might be in a position where you just don't touch the ball.
Yep.
But in basketball, it's pretty hard to hide, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what we're finding. And one thing that, it's not a brag, but one thing I love about Eltham is just that, especially in terms of domestic basketball, is the inclusivity about it, and the fact that we want kids getting on the court and enjoying the game and experiencing the game. And, we have our competitive pathway as well, where, we have our, rep teams or whatever it is. But from a domestic standpoint, we want kids getting out there and experiencing and loving it and looking forward to their Saturday domestic game where they get to run around and compete and have fun. So I've definitely seen a lot more of that. And it's just like, to me, someone would be preaching to the choir. I think basketball is the best sport in the world. But, I think people are starting to see that there is that benefit where you've got a roof over your head. It doesn't matter what the weather is, as long as it's not too hot. And you can run around and have fun with your friends and get some court time, and everyone gets involved and everyone gets a touch eventually. So, yeah.
Yeah, mate, that's brilliant. And in regards to your role at the Players Association, we talk about mental health, we talk about other things off the field, etc. How important is that to you? And what did you do during your career that not just practice physically, but also some of the traits that you've learned through it all, but also practice, I suppose, on a daily basis to make sure that things are right up here?
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest things was balance that you found, and it's really easy as a professional athlete, I think, to just stay locked into your world as an athlete. And sometimes where we forget is that we are, and it sounds stupid, but it is. You forget, like, I'm a human, and professional sport is my job. Often we mix those two identities together, and we say I am just a basketball player, football player, cricket player, etc. And you forget, and then suddenly that game that didn't go your way changes your entire week, and, you're down about it. And it's really hard to move on from those things if you're not identifying with things outside of your job, which, you would encourage everyone else around, if you worked in an office or a tradesman or whatever, to have hobbies outside of work. And it's no different for professional athletes. So I think that's a big one, is just helping athletes understand that there are resources that we can connect you with. There's work experience, or mental health, etc., career building, career planning, all kinds of options, just to have a different energy to say, look, basketball's not going great this week. I might put in a couple more hours into this space. And that might help me reset and get back on track basketball-wise.
In terms of switching off, did you have the opportunity? Were you a switcher offer, completely no basketball? I've heard wild theories and practices from athletes, people that have months off, completely zero, people that go, no, it's my life and I'll do it 24/7 and I don't care. What about you?
I really struggled to switch off. It was hard, I think, because basketball was also my number one hobby. When it became my job, it was like, okay, my hobby and my job are the same thing. And that was part of the battle. It was like, I want to, as soon as the game finished, win or lose, I want to go home and watch it. And if we had a really good win, I'm probably up till early hours in the morning because I can't switch off. And we had a bad loss, I'm up till early hours because I can't switch off. And so it's like, when am I actually like recovering properly? And when am I, kids help change that, obviously, because you just have to put so much more focus into them, and you have to wake up early next morning and move on, and they don't care, whether you won, lost, whatever. So I think from that perspective, it was helpful as I got older to kind of find other energies to put things into.
Did you watch yourself and your team play the full game, or did you just watch the clips? Did you watch the highlights? Did you watch you for 2 minutes? What did you watch?
Full games. I liked watching full games, and I think that was like a bad thing because then I'm watching, I'm sitting there for an hour and a half. But
at 1 a.m.
But at the same time, that was for me a way to, compress everything that happened and get an opinion on, that's how I felt at the time. Was that rational? Was that justified? And okay, I can go to sleep now. Or I can accept that was a bad game and I just saw it again, so I can move on now. But I wouldn't say it was the best coping mechanism.
No, it's fascinating because I watched the Brisbane Lions play Collingwood on the weekend, and they beat Collingwood away for the first time in 11 years at the MCG. And then Lachie Neale got asked the question about how did you pick yourself up from Gold Coast last week where you lost by 60? And he said, we just had a pathetic performance, but we didn't watch the tape. We just moved on and we just wanted to focus on this weekend. And I can't explain last week. It was a really kind of fascinating mantra to say, moving on, I can't explain it, just happens. And that happens in sport. I'm curious to know how you would gauge with something like that, where you've had a massive loss or a bad loss, but then you're going, well, this next week, let's pick yourself up.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, obviously, you have to gauge the maturity of your group. You probably need an experienced group to do that for the most part, who can understand what went wrong. I can't speak for them, obviously, but, I've been a part of groups where you go, we're not going to watch that tape because we're just going to talk about what was not okay. It might be effort areas, and we shouldn't have to sit there and watch video to talk about, this isn't us, and we can identify that's not us. So we'll get back to being us now, and that'll fix that problem. If there's major patterns in play, it's maybe something in training that we can implement and talk about what didn't work, etc. So, you might not feel like sitting there and watching video brings back a negative vibe as well, and you want to put that vibe and leave that on the past weekend and say, we're going to take the lessons, but we're going to leave the vibe.
Mate, you've played for a number of teams, and I'm not going to ask you who your favourite child is, but what I'm going to ask is around the different elements and learnings of clubs that you've got, from CEOs to leaderships to fan groups to coaches to players, and I suppose some of your happy memories of particular clubs. You can name them if you want, or not name them, doesn't really matter. But more like what made it good, what made it for you, right for you.
It's cliche to say the teams that won the championship, but at the same time, like, they do go hand in hand. I mean, we had a ton of fun on those teams, and they were talented teams, but also teams that played for each other. I was really fortunate to step out of college and go to second division Spain, Lebara, and just a much older group, a really experienced group, and I was stepping into a new world that I didn't really understand. I definitely didn't speak Spanish, so I was trying to, catch on, and they were just really great to me and helping me get ready and upskill quickly and adjust to Spanish basketball, which was completely different. So just a complete cultural adaptation and basketball adaptation for me in my first year, and it was really, really good for me. And then we ended up winning the championship, which was even better, and just celebrating with those guys and seeing how happy it made them, to win it for their city and et cetera, et cetera. So that was a special memory. And I think also just Melbourne United was another good one. I won one in Slovenia, and not to say it was like less exciting. I was just there for a shorter period of time. I think the most exciting one was Melbourne United, just because it was that COVID year. And it felt like it went for 2 years. Not because the group was bad. The group was great, and I loved it. It's just, it was the longest season ever, like the longest preseason, and having to sit out and stay at home and do all these tests to come back and prove that you were fit, and et cetera, et cetera. It just felt like a really, really long year. So to win it all at the end was kind of the cherry on top.
As you're going through your basketball career, did you set goals personally and then have the team involved with that, or was it always personal, or was there no goal setting at all?
Yeah, I found that I tried to be super, super realistic and maybe, I guess, underestimate, now that I can speak in hindsight. My first goal was just to get a college scholarship. I was at the AIS, and it's not a boohoo story. It's just a lot of my teammates at the AIS were getting college offers and getting letters every day, and I wasn't getting anything. And I remember sitting there and, I was like, it'd be so cool if I could, I probably can't afford to pay for college. So it would be so cool if if I could get a college scholarship, and then I can go play over there for 4 years and come out, and we'll see what happens. I don't know that if I'm going to play professionally or not, but at least I've got that, and then I can be a PE teacher or something. I don't know. And then I get the college scholarship offer 1 month really before I go for preseason, and I find that as I started to kind of kick goals, I was like having to reset the bar, I guess, which is really probably not traditional. You really want your big goal that you're chasing, and then you have some realistic goals to tick along the way. Whereas my big goal kept getting moved because I just didn't maybe believe at the time that was achievable. And suddenly I'm sitting here after, all these incredible experiences. So I think along the way, that big goal kept moving. Oh, I just signed a professional contract. Like I didn't ever think I would do that. And I'm back in the NBL, the league I used to go watch, the Bullets run around in. I thought how incredible to play in front of the people of Brisbane, just all of these things just kept getting kicked off. So yeah, I was very lucky.
Were you, when you were growing up watching basketball, were you fascinated by it all? And did you think, that's something I'd love to be a part of?
I was around it a lot. My family's a basketball family, so I was going to be around it, I think, inevitably. But yeah, I definitely was, I used to go watch the Bullets games, and fortunately they were really good as well. So, I had a good time going to those, and I think just growing up around, Basketball Queensland clinics and events, and just, I was just trying to get into everything I possibly could. I just loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. So yeah, I think I don't want to say obviously it was an advantage, it was, but at the same time, anything basketball I could put my hand up and we could afford, I did it.
Mate, I was with you there. I had multiple birthday parties out at Boondall Entertainment Centre for the Bullets. We had Malcolm Watts on recently. It was a little trip down memory lane. I'm curious to know who your favourite Bullets were growing up.
I guess that championship team Joey Wright coached, that year was really, really fun to go watch. I didn't know any of them, but I, knew some people who knew them. And so, I'd get stories, and I thought that was so cool that they knew the Bullets, and, Ebby Arar and Sam McKinnon and Dylan Boucher and, Mark Bradkey and all those guys. And I think, CJ Bruton obviously was someone that I was just like, man, these guys are so good and so fun. They played fast. They kicked the ball ahead. Adam Gibson's checking up full court, young Chris Goulding's in that group. And I think from my perspective, I was just like, obsessed with basketball from that, watching them play in the crowd and getting around them. And I was like, man, that would be so cool to do one day. So, I'm grateful for those teams.
Mate, absolutely. I'm an era behind you with Logan Sibley, Andre Moore, Shane Heal, Derek Rucker.
Yeah,
the list goes on.
Yeah.
Mate, I'm also curious to know, as you got through your career, the view of leadership in your mind, was it always pretty early that you thought that you could be a leader, and did you study it, or was it did it happen organically?
No, I definitely didn't study it. I think, ironically, I wouldn't sit here and say I'm the greatest leader. I don't I think it's a skill set I have, just because it's not so much like, hey, I'm a leader. I'm not an alpha by any means. I don't want to be seen that way. I guess I just like working with people and like trying to help people, because again, as we talked about earlier, I just think that's the most fun, working as a team to get a job done, and then that's the best feeling. So I think I've always just enjoyed personal interactions. I've enjoyed building relationships with teammates and getting to know them and getting to know their backgrounds and their families and stuff like that as best I can, because I enjoy that genuinely. It's not so much does that translate to me being a good leader on the basketball court. It's just nice to have a personal relationship. It's hard to ask people to do things on the court if you're not, they don't have the trust that you do the same for them. So I think there's a connection there. And yeah, I guess that has pushed me into some leadership positions and some challenges that, I've enjoyed, but yeah.
I'm also curious to know some of the habits that you had prior to the game. Was there some superstition? Did you get nervous? Was there some techniques that you used to bring the best out of you?
I was definitely anxious regularly, in a good way. I was just excited to play. I hate sitting around, so I hated sitting out injured. That was the worst. Going to a game injured was just you're not playing today, and it was just oh man, I got to sit here and wait and watch, and that sucked. And I also hated the warm-ups, to be honest. They go for so long, you're there so early, and I know it's important. It's just that period for me was just I really just want to play. I want to start the game. So I guess from my perspective, I always was keen to play, but yeah, I hated the waiting around, and I hated all the pregame stuff where we sit around and I sit in the locker room for 45 minutes, and I just wanted to get on court and play.
Were you a person that was pretty hard on yourself when things didn't go your way? Were you your own worst critic?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's fair to say I'm a tough self-critic for sure.
Right, and then in regards to, I suppose, the performance, some things don't go your way, and you beat yourself up, and we talked about that in terms of your critic. I'm also curious to know about your competitive nature off the court. Obviously, you said you're competitive, and that is a trait of high performers that I've seen. But was it winning at all costs? Was there something in, do you kind of play Scrabble with your family and want to win?
That's my wife. Don't play board games with my wife. I think I've learned to take a step back, and again, having toddlers now, I'm learning all the time about how to manage, language and conversations, and how easy it is for them to, get really serious about something. My son especially, it's like already he's just like, oh, but I need to win. It's just like, well, no, we don't. So I think that's really helped me as well. But I take it back to the Eltham Wildcats as a club. Our focus is really not necessarily about win all. We want to win, obviously. We are trying to win, and it's healthy to be competitive and to get after it and do your best. But at the same time, you have to take a step back and be like, what is our purpose? And it is to develop. It is to get you ready for what's next, or to allow you and enable you to have fun in what you're doing. I think that has helped as well, take a step back for me and realize, like, being competitive doesn't mean winning or losing. It just means giving it everything and trying to be better each time.
Do you reckon you've got a ledger of win-losses of games in your head since you've played professionally?
I don't. I am hoping I had more wins than losses, but I don't have the count.
So this is funny. Like, I talk to professional athletes about competitiveness and winning and losing, and then some come out the other side, and some come out minorly ahead, some come out, and it's like, oh, luck of the draw. It's really interesting from a point of view of competitiveness, where things have landed in hindsight. I'm also, you touched on the injury side of things, and you've had some injuries, obviously, for the last couple of seasons, etc. And that frustration, obviously, resilience is a trait that you've learned over that. How did you view injuries? Obviously, the initial part where you're disappointed, there's probably 10 different emotions when you first do it, but also that recovery period. And some people have called it blessing, some people have called it part of the game, price of entry. Your view?
Yeah, it's a really hard one. I think there's a responsibility, to be honest. Again, this is my personal opinion. I think there's a responsibility to be honest with people that are paying to attend games. And not that I ever, I'm not trying to stand on my turn and be like, hey, I always played as hard. There was times where I didn't want to be there because I was in a lot of pain, but at the same time, sitting out was a worse option. I don't want to do rehab and sit there and not play either. So, even for myself, I wanted to always play if I could. And unless the physio ruled me out, I was probably going to play. If he asked me, what do you think? I'm playing. So I guess it was always an easy decision for me. I don't think people, injury management is important, and I can sit back and say, myself, that I ignored some things I shouldn't have. But I think that was more away from the court. A game day, sorry. I think it was more away from game day and more throughout the week. I just be like, oh, I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore that. And then a month later, you're like, I should not have ignored that. So it was more away from the game day arena with all the fans in it. It's more day-to-day training and making sure you're doing your prehab, your rehab. Are you hydrating? Are you eating right? Because all those things add up. Yeah,
it's an interesting point. I chatted to Tom Boyd about this and the injuries that he went through as an AFL player. And he just said it just didn't feel right in terms of obviously wanting to get back as quickly as you can. The recovery periods are probably shorter from AFL players versus the common person because it's their job and they want to get back. They want to win premierships, etc. Is there something there you think that there could be some better systems or better support or something around injury management during your career and maybe moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a forever debate because the clubs will obviously turn around and want their athletes playing. They're paying them to play. So they're always going to want them to be on the court, on the field, whatever. I think it's also a player's responsibility to be honest and have conversations and say, hey, this is hurting because I wasn't great at that, especially in the early part of my career. I just didn't bring it up. they'd be like, "Oh, how are you?" I'd be like, "Oh, good." Yeah, I wasn't, but like, I should have told them
Yeah.
that.
Honesty. Maybe. I mean, honesty's hard at that because it's your profession, right? And your identity and whatnot. Yeah.
Right. And you just like, the fear is that they find something and then they tell you to sit out. And, I know it comes from a good place, but, it will only get worse. And, I think it's an interesting point about, it just didn't feel right. Like, that's where I got to as well. It's like, I know what you're saying it should feel like, and I know what you're saying. Yeah, but this doesn't mimic. And you eventually learn you have to listen to your body and communicate that properly. So, I think it's a really important balance. It's an honest conversation, and you just hope that the club has the best plans for the athlete as well.
Yeah, and you've also touched a little bit about having children, and then perspectives changed a little bit in life. Was that part of your decision, I suppose, to retire?
It definitely weighed into it. Obviously, the Breakers parted ways, however you want to word that. So, for me, it was kind of like, well, what are we doing now? We've kind of got some options and some choices. Do I wait and sign with someone else? Do I not sign and wait? Do I sign immediately? And I guess I was at the point where I was like, my body is really sore. I'm trying to listen to it more than I ever have before. And it's kind of telling me, I don't know that you can do this every day anymore. And again, I leaned back to, before I really started playing professionally. And I said, if it's at that point, it's probably time to call time. So I think I just listened, and I just thought, like, again, 2 trainings a week and 1 game on a weekend, I can manage that in a bigger off season. But every day, if I can't train every day, I don't want to be the guy that's sitting out all week just so I can play the game. I'm not that MVP for the team. So there's no point in doing that.
And how would you like to be remembered now through your career as Mitch McCarron? When people say Mitch McCarron, they say,
As lame as it sounds, I just hope that they knew that I cared about them as a teammate. Again, I'm pretty huge on that, and I think that's why I'm really enjoying this role with the Players Association, is that, I really want people to understand that they're humans, and as much as we want to perform well and play well every week, we don't, and that doesn't mean that you are devalued as a person. So, I think, as I got older, it got easy. Social media, online gambling, whatever it is, people cop a lot of abuse, and it's easy to get caught in that world. So I just hope that, people knew they could always come to me, and I tried to just be that guy that I would always be open for conversation, or if you're in trouble or you need help with something, you could come to me. So yeah, that's how I tried to be.
You just touched on online gambling. It's the first time I've heard that in all my podcasts about potential abuse. Is it something that you experienced through your life where someone may have bet on you or something and you've lost money and therefore they abuse you?
Definitely lost some people money.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I think every athlete at this point has, and even in the NBL, it's been a growing space. I mean, it's what comes with the territory, I suppose, is that, with the growing popularity of the sport, people are more invested, and people jump online and put money on the game. So unfortunately, yeah, there's been some pretty derogatory messages. From
an individual point of view or from your team?
Both. Yeah, unfortunately, I received some messages. My wife received messages. It's pretty nasty.
That's definitely crossing the line. We talked to Christine Finnegan at the Jack Jumpers about it, and she, about feedback now. Obviously, it's pretty easy to give feedback from a social media point of view. How have you handled the social media generation the last 10 years as a professional player? Plus, I suppose, in terms of how do I, whatever.
Yeah, I think it's been, again, another, conversation about, my kids and the future and the dangers of social media, I suppose, and trying to educate them on what it should be for and what it's not for. I always looked at social media as a fun way to communicate with friends all over the place. Having moved overseas and lived in different countries, I had friends everywhere. It wasn't always easy to text, so you jump on social media and you can always get them. So I always had socials, but at the same time, I never really took it too seriously. Like, it was just a way, I'd do trivia or whatever, just a fun way to communicate with people. But I never really, read through all the comments and got upset about that, or got moved one way, or both ways. I mean, because I think it's also easy to, you have a really good game, everyone jumps on and says, hey man, you killed it, and it's really easy to get lifted the other way and think, oh, everyone loves me, and then suddenly you have a bad game and you're just getting pure abuse, and so you start to move with that pendulum as well. I think Jamal Crawford spoke about it a little bit, about never too high, never too low. And you just stay in the middle, know who you are, and don't move too far this way and that way. And what people are saying at some point is, irrelevant. Not in a disrespectful way. It's just like, they're fans and they care about the game and they care about the results. But, you have to rock back up the next week and try and win. So you can't also sway with them. You have to stay here.
I remember Paul Salmon talking in a podcast that Kevin Sheedy got booed off, right? And Kevin Sheedy just took him over and said, mate, they have no idea. Like, they have literally no idea about you. Like, they're just going for the moment. They'll forget about it, etc. But it was really interesting, like, behind the scenes. And yeah, no, it's a fascinating topic to talk about for a long time. But now let's go on to you for a little bit, Mitch, about some of the traits and I suppose some of the moments in your life. The first question I've got is about your scoreboard moment, which I call, this podcast a scoreboard moment. It's a moment in your life which is very vivid. Could be yesterday, or might feel like yesterday. And from that moment, things changed.
I think, in all honesty, I think the scoreboard moment was probably in Spain, and we were in what they call the Princess Cup, and it's the middle of the year. The top team plays the second team, whatever it is, and I had no idea about this concept. Like, to me, like, coming from Australia, I was like, a championship game in the middle of the year, what does that mean? Why do you care about that? But they did. Like, they really cared about it. And, I was like, okay, I guess we're getting up for this. And then we ended up winning that game. It went to double OT. It was super dramatic. My nose got broken at the end of the fourth. It's bleeding everywhere. I just wanted to get back on the court because I'm like, this is the crowd is going wild. And I was like, I want to get back on the court and I want to play. And then I missed the first overtime, trying to clog my nose basically the whole time. And then I came back on for the second overtime and it was like shot for shot for shot for shot. And we ended up winning and just celebrating. I think from that moment, that just cemented how cool, again, doing something with a group of guys you get along with is really, really special.
And the connections that you made from that group, I suppose, do you still text them? Are you still friends on Facebook and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, we still reach out from time to time. And I think just looking back, you see photos and videos. The fan base constantly posts every year about, hey, this is the date we won this, and you get a reminder every year. And it's it was a really special moment. And for me, it was just in my first year as a pro, I was just like, man, how lucky am I to be
That's
doing
awesome. That. That's awesome. And did the stories get bigger and bolder?
They did. Yeah,
25 feet away.
Yeah.
Also, we've got a sponsor on Scoreboard, and that's Swyftx, and they've got over 1.1 million users across Australia and New Zealand. They're Australia's top-rated crypto platform, and as part of that sponsorship, we do a little segment called The Bucket List, and that is a sporting event that you'd love to attend that you have not attended, and part of their new campaign is Where Can Crypto Take You? I'm interested to know, Mitch, your bucket list sporting event.
I've got two. I have never been. I lived in Spain and never went to a professional soccer game, which is really poor. But I also think I've never seen the Australian cricket team play live. I've never seen it. And I love cricket. So it's kind of crazy to sit here and say I've been to, I feel like, every other level, and I've been to a lot of different leagues and the Big Bash and whatever, but I've never seen the Australian cricket team play live. So I'm hoping now that I have a little bit more of a predictable schedule, I can do that.
There you go. Where could crypto take you? It could take you to the MCG on Boxing Day this year or the Ashes. And what an Ashes series it's going to be. We're having this monumental series at the moment between England and India, which has come down to the fifth test and the fifth day coming up tomorrow, actually. So this podcast won't age well with the result, but it's 25 days of pure test cricket there. And then they come over here to play us, which I can't wait for. Just on the cricket thing, Mitch, are you a T20 or are you a test match person?
I'm more than happy to set up on the couch and watch a test match.
Yeah, I think I'm in that boat too. I love the T20 and it's doing fabulous things, but nothing beats a bit of summer.
Agreed.
Test cricket in the background. Now we have a new segment thanks to our newest sponsor, SportsFX. It's called the Passport Stamp, which is powered by SportsFX. When sport takes you overseas, it's not just the culture that changes, it's the currency too. That's where SportsFX comes in. They help athletes, agents, and clubs manage the financial side of global sport, whether it's contracts, prize money, or everyday expenses. With over $1 billion transferred and trusted by the PFA and RLPA, SportsFX helps you protect what you earn wherever sport may take you. Don't just move money, protect it. Now to the question, what's your favourite overseas destination that sport has taken you?
It's really hard to pick one, actually, because everywhere is so different. I touched on how Spain was culturally super different for me, and the food was different, and it was just like a wow moment constantly. I felt like every week it was just like a wow, this is new and I love it. But then I think Slovenia was really, really fun. I think that's probably the one that I was just like, this is, again, really different. I arrive to, like snow, and I get into Ljubljana, and it's such a beautiful city, and the river's running through, and there's these old castles, and it's just everything you need to do is within the country, whatever it is, skiing, hiking, go in the caves, there's the beach. So, just an incredibly beautiful country, and a lot of beautiful people that really helped me settle as well. And they speak English really, really well, which helped me because I speak very, very, very little of the language.
Mate, and then your all-time favourite sporting moment. I reckon there's a couple there already from you individually that we've already rattled off. But in terms of not yourself, what's your favourite all-time sporting moment?
Yeah, I think looking back, it's probably one that doesn't involve the team that I was on. Was probably maybe the Bullets winning that championship. I don't know why I felt really connected to them. I just I guess as a young fan that was obsessed with basketball, and I was like, these guys score so much and they score so often, they were just fun to watch, and they got after it. They played full court defense, chest to chest, like I said, and it was like, man, these guys really play hard and they're fun. So seeing them win at the end of the day was really cool. And I think that's probably one that I'll never forget, just, not being around, but being a part of that journey as a fan.
And in regards to meeting some of those people, and are they your mates now? And how did you go with the sort of first interactions with them? And they might say, hi, I'm Sam. And you're kind of like, yeah, I know who you are, sort of thing.
It's a funny relationship sometimes, because you go from being purely a fan and you're like, you just want to show them photos or whatever. You're like, hey, here's me as a kid with you. It's like, you don't want to be a fanboy, but you want to be like, hey, like, I used to love watching you play. And now it's like, maybe they're your coach. Obviously, CJ coached me in Adelaide, and I've worked with Dylan Boucher. I played with Dylan Boucher in the New Zealand NBL as well, and worked with Mark Bradkey in the Boomers program as well. So it's like you start to make all these connections, and I got to play with Chris Golding, who was a really young guy at the time and was really exciting. Everyone was like, oh, this guy's going to be a star, and look what's happened. So it's cool to have those connections as a young fan, and then eventually a player.
No, absolutely. I've got a verbal approval of Leroy Loggins coming on the podcast soon.
Nice. Awesome.
And I've got my photo with him when I was 8 years old.
That's great.
I'll be like, hi, Leroy. It's like, it's funny how things change with perspective and with age. And final question around identity for you moving forward, Mitch McCarron, the basketballer versus no longer the basketballer, but the person. How are you going to deal with that? And what do you want to be remembered by, I suppose, in the next coming years and the next journey of your life?
I think I just want to, again, just try and help wherever I can. I think that's like obviously the reason why as a culture that we can't lose that as an Australian culture in the sporting world, as much as we want to win and we want to be competitive and we want to be the best in the world. And I love that about us, but that doesn't happen without everyone giving up their time and helping the younger generations grow and get better. And then that generation helps the next generation. So, I just want to be a part of that. It's not one person, it's not 10 people, it's everybody all over the country trying to help the next generation.
And in regards to being a parent now, what's some advice that as your kids grow older and start playing sport, what sort of parent are you going to be?
Not a super involved one. Obviously, I don't want to give too much advice because I've only been a parent for 4 years now. But at the same time, I think it's important to take a step back and understand that a kid is doing it because they love it. And whether they win or lose and how they feel about that might actually be predicated by your reaction and your language. They won't sit around and mope about a loss all weekend if you're not. So helping them to understand that, while we're young and while we're developing, that mistakes happen and we don't get to win all the time, and that builds resilience and that's part of the journey.
Mate, sure is, and mistakes happen all the time. We're human beings and there's ups and downs every single day. Mitch McCarron, thank you so much for being on Scoreboard, the podcast, to share your journey as a professional basketball player on and off the court and now into the next phase of your life with the different roles that you're in. I wish you all the best, and I do congratulate you on your career and the person that you've become through sport and through basketball, and looking forward to following the progress and catching up.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for having me on.